All right, I want to consider a few other artists as well, and artist groups, people who are specifically making art and operating within this sort of, in this world. The first artist is Cory Arcangel. The project is called Super Mario Clouds, and you see here a cartridge that he's modified. And he physically modifies the cartridge. He takes the game, appropriates the content, removes Mario, removes all of the action, and what you're left with is this, which is a very short animation just showing the clouds. Now this is really interesting and really important, and for several reasons. The first of which is that, like, if anybody has played this game, this means a lot. This is a really beautiful reference to your childhood, or to, you know, to things that you've lived or lived through. But also there's a huge tradition of working in clouds and cloudscapes in art, in painting in particular. So this has just an amazing sort of reference to it. This last picture from his is showing you the steps that he goes to actually do the modifications of the cartridges. And whereas you can look at the Super Mario Clouds on YouTube, it's not completely contained in the video, but it's also about the physical qualities of building this retro cartridge. I want to mention something that touches on a lot of this, and this is illegal art. Illegal art is an exhibition of art that for some reason or another goes against current law. And to a certain extent, Super Mario Clouds is in that sort of gray area. What I want to show you is a little bit of a clip from something called Wizard People. Wizard People is a direct reinterpretation of Harry Potter, but it's based on the movie as opposed to the books. So what this is kind of like an MST3K sort of reinterpretation of the movie, but it's sort of scripted out. And it's hilarious. But it's also very illegal. It violates copyright law. You can't, it can't be sold, because the audio that was created by the artist relies very specifically on the copyrighted video. Let's take a quick look.
Out from the shadows of God knows what dimension steps the oldest wizard in the books, the near-dead Dumbledore. He is clearly a powerful beast and walks with dignity despite his age and attire. He sees a cat that he knows right before he sets to work. He produces a wizard's tool known as the Street Darkener, and with a practiced angling of the arm, begins to siphon away the clarity made from mankind's bulbs. Magical deeds are afoot, dear readers. Magical darkness, a must. The atmosphere complete, the cat, now protected by shadows, transforms into who else but Professor Hardcastle McCormick, an old friend and ally of Dumbledore the half-dead. She is truly a great wizard also, and possesses many a skill that might aid in tonight's random errands. They speak gravely of tonight's horrible decision. And dear readers, trust me, their work tonight is dubious. What are they to do? Are they really going to go through with tonight's desperate plan? The choice is clearly in powerful hands as Dumbledore ponders with his gigantic brain. Just then, a light approaches in the clouds. Shredding through the stratos descends no other than Hagar the Horrible. A huge man that, if you didn't know better, you may mistake him for a giant hairy truck. He is Dumbledore's gopher, and now perched upon his sky leopard, Hagar seems at the end of an errand that almost bested him. But lo, out from his manly pape, he produces the most powerful baby in the universe, Dumbledore accepts the swaddled child like the delicate button of an atomic bomb. His bowels tense. No false moves here. Hardcastle McCormick pleads with Dumbledore not to go through with the plan. What plan, you ask? Well, they are going to leave this veritable weapon of the gods, this paradox of babiness and power, right here on a frickin' muggle's doorstep. But shh, says Dumbledore to the baby, and shh, he says to the laity. As Hagar gnashes his teeth in inner conflict and almost drowns in snotty, fearful tears, his master Dumbledore tells him to wait in the frickin' car if he has to. And the baby is left. The baby with the most telling of scars. The baby that is the seed of power. The baby that is the inheritor of the horrible, hoary hammer of the gods. Harry, the wizard who is destined to vanquish all evil, and if he so wishes, brings it back again. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone!
So the other piece that I want to look at is by Anne-Marie Schleiner. It's called Velvet Strike. And what Anne-Marie did in this case was she went into a massively multiplayer game called Counter-Strike, a first-person shooter, and they modified the client, or they used a modification of the client to create these posters on the walls. So you'll see in this 18-second video, and I apologize for the quality of it, it's very low resolution, that they're moving through this combat zone, and what they do is they leave graffiti. Now, the most interesting thing about this was the reaction to it. So players of the game Counter-Strike reacted violently to it, with threats even, and were just offended that somebody would come into this play space and create this. And it wasn't about so much the content, although the content was directly and intentionally inflammatory. It was about peace and getting along and that sort of thing. But it was really about sort of the breaking of the magic circle, which we'll talk a little bit more about with respect to games. So people didn't understand or didn't appreciate that the game was being sort of repurposed while they were playing it. The last project that I want to talk about was by a group called Ubermorgen. And what they did was they created in the 2000 election a place to sell or trade votes. Now this is also highly illegal. And in fact, the Federal Elections Commission came down on these folks like a ton of bricks. The point was never to sell votes, but was to get people to start to think about it. And to think about, well, if you're in an area and you would, like somebody else's, your vote is a valuable thing, would you just rather sell it off to somebody or use it? And they eventually got it eventually got settled because it was based on sort of the intent of it. But the legality of it, the project could never actually be completely executed. So in thinking back, I want to just point out that hacking is really a movement. It's about systems. Hacktivism is about taking these sort of ideas and applying them directly to a purpose, an activist purpose. And corporate parody sort of has a tendency to sort of overshadow this, but it can create like a format or a procedure to operate within.